welcome to the September 2021 meeting, the general meeting of the Diamond Valley Writers Guild. I'm going to start this morning with the normal question. Did anyone have anything published, or did anyone start writing something or finish something? Any news on the front? Becky, you have your hand up. What?
On September 15th, I published my first book. Who's Your Daughter?
Right. What? What's the name?
Who's Your Daughter?
Okay.
It's early life memoir, but it's told in short stories. And it's available on Amazon. Yesterday I sent over a picture, so hopefully it'll get posted on to you folks. So hopefully it'll get posted on the books list for this guild.
I will.
But it's been something I've been working on since 2011, and I never thought I'd get it finished. So it actually,
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You know, in a sense, you're wrong. You have not been working on that book since 2011. That's the kind of book you've been working on all your life.
That's true.
So I think that's great. That's terrific. The first book is and it's always amazing. Anybody else have anything that you'd like to let us know about?
Wait a second, before we go further, Becky, is that Hoosier daughter or? Okay.
Hoosier, right?
And are you on Amazon? Oh, there you are. Okay, I got it. All right. So you are right now in Kindle and paperback. Ooh, beautiful cover. Okay. All right, I'll get you up on the books page.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, Jim, my collection of short stories, Oddballs and Other Folks, is now officially on Kindle and should be in paperback in about 10 days.
All right. And of course, in our writing group, we've heard a few of those already. They're terrific.
I'll get that up too, Jolynn. Who did you publish the paperback with?
Amazon.
Okay, you went through KDP?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that's terrific. Anybody else? No, seeing none. I just want to point out a book today, as I often do. If you've not seen this before, this is a book for people who love books. If you haven't seen it, 1,001 books to read before you die. Okay. I went through the list. I'd read 23 or 24, no, a little bit more than that, but not many. I mean, there are a lot of books. And there's one book in there that is so obscure, you have to go to a monastery in Spain to find a copy. But most of them you can buy. A lot of the classics, of course, are on Kindle and things of that sort. And when I was in college, of course, I read some, but there are many books in there that they talk about that I've not read, and it's a good guide. If you love books, it's a great book. I mean, just to read about other books and other writers and what they've done is fun. And I've really enjoyed it. I read the book completely cover to cover. I won't go back and do it again simply because it's so much fun, and I've forgotten what they've said about some of the books, but it's worth it. There's a whole series of them. I'm sure you've seen. There's 1,001 movies to see before you die, 1,001 battles. I mean, there are several books in the series, but this was my favorite. Okay, and from there, I want to move in to Chuck. Chuck has an announcement. Chuck.
Okay, thank you. This is a friend of mine that's an actor that I've been in a couple of plays with, Kevin Spire. Some of you may know him. Is a member of the Hemet San Jacinto. Is it called Human Relations? It's called the Human Relations Council, okay? And they're looking for somebody to edit their newsletter. Now, I put onto the chat the information that I have on that, and he says there might even be a stipend But I think that if you go to the website, you'll see what this board is. I didn't know it existed. But to give you an idea, the Hemet Mayor Pro Tem, Linda Krupa, is the chairman of the board. And they have a website, and they also have a Facebook page. And I've also included Kevin Spire's phone number there if you want to talk to him about it. There may be somebody that would like to edit a newsletter. I don't know. So
Okay.
that's the information.
All right, thanks, Chuck.
Questions? Because I don't know much more than reading their.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I'm not seeing the message in the chat.
Really?
Yeah,
I can see it. How about that?
okay. Well, can you just read me his phone number?
Sure. Hang on. It's the Hemet Relations Council, Greater San Jacinto, Kevin Spire, SPEIR, 951-514-7911.
Okay.
And I've made a list there of the board members with the offhand chance that somebody may know one of them and they could talk to them about it. Might be a
Okay.
better way in, who knows? I'd suggest you go to the website and see what they're all about. If you got Facebook, the Facebook page is actually nicer to read, so.
Well, thank you. I would like to include that in the blog post summary is why
Yeah.
I'm asking.
They sponsor these writing contests for local high school kids, and usually it's human relations of some sort.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chuck. Appreciate that. I wanted to go now for next month with Joe. Joe, would you like to explain about next month?
Yes, we're going to try to come up to Howard standard with the poets and have prose reading. So we would like you to submit something you're willing to read up to 1,000 words because of time constraints. And it can be essays, short stories, and excerpts, but we would like participants, and you can email me what you want to read at Jolynne, lowercase JOLYNNE, numeral 1 at live.com. I would like to have them by the 15th of October, so I have plenty of time to set up a roster. So follow the format of that we use for the straitjackets, and join us in sharing your work.
Okay. Actually, neither Cheryl, I don't see Cheryl here. Cheryl is
No.
not.
Sharon, Cheryl's son is visiting, and Ellen's in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So they asked me to speak for the magazine.
Man, why don't you go ahead and do that right now?
Okay, you have a few more days to submit. October 1st is our deadline, and we're hoping to have it out by the middle of October before our next meeting. So we're still open for submissions. And you
Okay.
can get the information on our website.
Also, if I could make a comment about that, we were having a little trouble with our email account, and Ellen wasn't able to get in. So she asked me if I would send out the notice, Jolynne, the one that, she would normally send out saying, inviting people to submit, telling what the deadline is, October 1st, and then also the contest and the picture, write a little story about this picture. So I tried to send it, but I couldn't. So I'm going to try and do that like tomorrow. I'll try to resend out that email that provides all of that good information about this latest edition.
And I will send out an email with all the information about the October meeting in the next day or so. It'll have Jolynn's email address on there and what the requirements are. So I'll send that. I've already sent it out once, but I'll send it out again in tomorrow, the day after, today, maybe if I get a chance. So Next is on the agenda, just a word. We are going to have elections next month. There are 2 positions that are opening up, Joe's treasurer's position and my position as president. Neither of us are running again. So it's, if anybody is interested in the positions, I know at least one person who is, but it's, I've certainly, I'm not running again. I've certainly enjoyed my 2 years. It's been great, but next, it's got to be somebody else taking over next. And of course, I had a hard time following the legend of Lynne. But next month, election. So treasurer and president, those are the 2 that will be open. Let's see. Okay, that covers everything up until now. We have our monthly tip from Sandy.
Yay.
By the way, I just want to say something. I just got a text from Karen Robertson, and she said she's listening on her cell phone. So, hey, Karen, hi.
Hi, Karen.
So do you want me to do membership after Sandy?
I'm sorry. No, Cheryl, let's do you first. I'm sorry, my mistake.
It's senioritis.
Usually I'm ahead of that on the agenda, so I thought you might have forgotten about me, but that's
No,
okay. I'm used to it.
No, I just,
Oh, ow.
He can
Completely
smell-
disregarded
He
at
can,
every
he can
turn.
smell the barn. He's almost not the president anymore. And
you-
so
you
he's getting
did-
sloppy.
I'm jealous. You did such a good job last time, or when I wasn't here, you did such a good job. I'm jealous, and so I left you off.
Well, and Michelle, you're always so shy and reticent. So,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Michelle. Go ahead. Would you?
I've been trying to overcome my fear of public speaking. It's been a challenge, so.
we're supporting
Anyway.
you.
Okay, we have 2 new members this month, which it's kind of cool because it's late in the year, and so it was very nice. And I know that one of them joined because she wanted to submit to straitjacket, so that is a huge benefit. Everyone here, I believe, is a member, and if not, hopefully you'll become a member. If not this year, next year. But that is the huge benefit, is being able to submit to Straitjackets magazine, getting 10% off at Cameron's Books, having your published works on our website, and just the knowledge that you're supporting writers in writing and this organization that hopefully I think has helped a lot of people. When we first started this organization, we had published authors, but the number of people every month or every couple months that we hear who have published their short stories or the novel they've been working on forever.
Okay, wait a second. Somebody needs
Judith?
to mute themselves.
Judith, you need to mute.
All the junk that went.
Judith, you need to mute, hun. Thank you. It's easy to do. It's easy to forget what you're doing out here. Anyway, but yeah, so we're up to 66 members at this point,
Wow,
which
good.
in
Yay.
a pandemic Zoom only meeting scenario is pretty good. Our numbers are lower than they were prior, but not by a huge amount. And it helps us keep the doors open. That $20 a year helps us pay for the Zoom, which is a $15 a month charge for us to be able to do that. And we have to do that 12 months a year, even though we only have the 10 meetings. So because we can't just, eliminate the account and then start back up. And our websites cost us money for both the straitjackets and for the guild. There's a lot of, unseen expenses, but they're small. And so your $20 helps. So thank you again. And I'll be hitting renewals starting next month. And so because we're not accepting renewals for 2022 until the October meeting. So that'll be the time to do that. If you do send a check in October, just stick down on the memo 2022 so I know, okay? That way when I pick it up, I'll be able to decipher which year you're paying for. And that's about it, I think.
Okay, great. Did I neglect anybody else? I feel bad about that. Okay. If I haven't neglected anybody else, then we will definitely move to Sandy for her monthly writing tip.
Well, this one I discovered when I was noodling on the Gotham Writers site, and I came across the Marcel Proust character questionnaire. And I thought it had some really interesting questions. There's about 35 questions there. And I know we have all seen those questionnaires are what's the eye color, where did they go to school, how tall are they, etc. So there was, I think, a lot of who, what, when, where. But these Proust questions sort of get to the why of things. So a sampling of those are like, what is it that you most dislike? What is your greatest fear? Which living person do you most despise? What is your greatest regret? What talent would you like to have? What do you value in your friends or in yourself? Who are your heroes in real life? On what occasions would you lie? What is your motto? And I always, when I see motto or something, I think of Bosch, who always says, everybody matters or nobody matters. But I think there's great possibilities in those more in-depth why kinds of questions, so that you discover your arc and how your character would act and react in both dialogue and plot events. So you can just Google Marcel Proust character questionnaire, and a plethora of sites will show up that have that that whole list on it. Vanity Fair does say Proust did not create this, but he played in a parlor game, and so that was how they found out about each other and so on. But Gotham writers say it's his list. Regardless, there's 35 questions you can utilize to really give your characters more life and more depth. That's it.
All right. Thank you,
Good.
Sandy. I'm sure most of you know Marcel Proust wrote Remembrance of Things Past, which is considered the longest novel ever written. It goes into about 6 volumes, and each volume's about 500 pages, and my description of Proust is dense. I would think dense reading. At any rate, thanks, Sandy. A great tip there. Okay, today we're going to do our speaker. Lynn, is somebody going to introduce you? If not, I'd like to.
Well, this would be your big opportunity, Jim.
Okay, well, here she is in all her glory. Most of you, of course, know Lynn personally. Lynn's joined the writing group when we all met in a bar. Here on Sarah. Oh, was it, what mornings do we meet? Was it Monday mornings or whatever it was?
I'm thinking it was.
Yeah, I think it's Monday mornings. We'd meet at a bar, and there's only about maybe 6 of us, and it was
Not counting the cockroaches.
Not, yeah, right, the cockroaches and flies. But it was a bar that Ray Strait had a partnership in, and but we were meeting there, and I'd been there a little longer than Lynn, but not too much, and she joined us, and right away I think we all recognized that she had some real talent writing, and of course since then she's published quite a few books, and she's part of our writing group on Wednesday mornings. And it's always a pleasure to hear her, both give her critiques and to hear her read and present her material. If you haven't read any of her books, you should certainly, you can pick them up on Amazon, right, Lynn?
Absolutely.
And her latest book is, would you like to show your latest book to everyone?
Well, I will, and it's going to be part of the my presentation too. But we did this once before. Thanks to Marge Charlier for the title. I had originally called it Florida Do-Over, but she came up with a better title, and I wrote it during NaNo. So I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later.
All right. And so, and of course, all of you know that this organization is really her baby. She is responsible for putting it together and maintaining it for the first 4 years. All I did was just kind of step in for 2 years and fill part of the role that she had done all these various things for. Thank goodness she stayed on and helped out. And but she is really responsible for this group. And without further ado, Lynn, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Jim. What a nice introduction, and without any warning, you just did that spontaneously. Can you guys hear me? Because all of a sudden you're all muted, so I can't tell. Okay. I'd like to do something, since there's not that many of us, Jim. If one of you has a question while I'm speaking, just do this, okay? Somebody will see you. And then Jim, try and keep an eye out for that and unmute them.
Oh, I can't watch because I have speaker only on for you.
Oh,
and it's
okay.
for recording.
Oh yeah,
So-
oh yeah, because I'm gonna have
so
my
if
screen
that-
share.
If somebody
I can
does-
watch. I can watch.
Okay,
Okay, I'm gonna be doing the screen share too, Jim. So
all right.
I've got the presentation, but I want to thank you for that introduction. In 2012, when I wrote my first book, you not only blurbed the cover in a very gracious way that I'm sure helped me sell a lot of books, but you also, at my book launch at my house, where we had about 60 people at my house, I hadn't planned ahead. So I said, could you introduce me? And you did. And you gave me the most gracious introduction, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you so much for how you did step in. I think that, what I tried to do in getting a group of people together to start this guild with me, because there were about a dozen people who helped originate it. I think that you probably stepped into an intimidating spot. I think a lot of people were afraid to pick up, the ball and run with it after I said I wouldn't be the president anymore, wasn't able to. So thank you for doing that, Jim. In a normal setting, I'd walk you up to the podium and I would give you an award of some kind, some plaque or something, and I would give you a big old hug and tell you thank you for your contributions to this group. But since we're here on Zoom, I'll just give you a big virtual hug, and I'm sure everybody else would join me in that, because you really did yeoman's work and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Lynn. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, last year I did this presentation and I called it do a book in a month. I think it was a book in a month, write a book in a month with NaNoWriMo. And that was great. We did it. I wrote a book in a month and it ended up being the one I just held up. But then what happened after I gave that talk was that Karen Robertson suggested that we put together a group of people who were going to do Nano together. And we did. We got together every Monday for 1 hour at 1 o'clock. And we did it by Zoom, so it's pretty easy. And we met in October to talk about what we were going to do in November once the marathon started. And I want to be clear, it is a marathon. It's easier to explain it that way to your family as well. So once the marathon started then, November 1st, then we would report back to each other once a week and tell each other how we were doing and keep each other, hold each other up, support each other. It was really worthwhile to me. I had never done Nano with a group, but that really, it perked me up. It really showed me the value of being in a group. But what was interesting afterwards is that I got so much more out of it than just writing a book. Yes, I did write a book in a month, but what I got out of it was that I learned so much about my process, and I think everybody else did too, that I wanted to take a different approach this year when I talk about this, because I want to show you that NaNoWriMo isn't just a circus where you just, a race where you just race to write as fast as you can and get 50,000 words down on paper. It isn't. It's really much more than that. It's almost a developmental process where you learn something about yourself. So that's why I called it Supercharge Your Writing Process using NaNoWriMo, because I want to give you some examples of what people learned about that. So I'm going to go to screen share. So hang on a second. Oh, can you, Jim, can you click me into the screen share?
It should be already on there.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oops.
Where did you go?
Well, I
There's-
screen share.
There's
but
you.
There's me. I think I screwed up here somehow. Let me see. Okay. There. All right. I'm back.
Okay.
Let me try this one more time. Okay.
All righty.
There we go. Now let's
Okay.
see if you can try it.
Oh
now.
yeah, here we go.
Okay, there you are.
Okay, and let me get this thing down here. Okay. All right. So that's the fancy cover for my talk, but we're already, oh, I wanted to say, most of you probably know what NaNoWriMo is, but it stands for National Novel Writing Month. I first did it about 7 years ago. Somebody who was kind of a stranger to me wanted to, make it like a little writing group of 2. And she said, well, let's do this thing called NaNoWriMo. And I was so lame, I thought it was pronounced NaNoWriMo. So that's how far back I started. They've been around for about 20 years. It's a nonprofit. They have a website called nanowrimo.org, which will become important to you as we go along. And about 1 million people a year do NaNoWriMo around the globe. It's becoming bigger. And I'm sure that it just exploded when the era of self-publishing developed. Because before this, you'd write a book and then you'd try and find an agent and years later maybe get it published. But now you can publish that book December 1st if it's good enough, which it won't be, but we'll talk about that. Okay. But anyway, if you need a jump start, Nano is for you. By the way, am I yelling? Jim, just nod your head. And
You're
tell me
fine.
The
You're
audio is
fine.
good. Okay, good. Okay. So Nano can amp up your productivity. It can teach you something about yourself. And I can hear you, Jim. And you can, it'll help you complete a book. But sometimes people are reluctant to do Nano because they think that the book that comes out of this short of an intensive writing period would by necessity end up being junk. But I can tell you, if you follow my process, it will not end up being junk. I don't do Nano just because I want to experience the thrill of, the pressure. I have enough pressure in my life. I don't need to artificially manufacture it. I do Nano because I want to publish a book. It's getting towards the end of the year. Maybe I haven't produced enough this year, and I'm starting to feel like I want to have something to show for 2021. But I really go at it like I am a professional writer, and this is my last opportunity to get as far as I can on creating an actual book. So I've published 3 novels using NaNoWriMo.
Later, you had something else to do. So I leave it up to you to.
Somebody is talking. Okay, good. All right. The 3 books that I published using NaNoWriMo are Key Largo Blues. I wrote that largely in a hotel room when I was in Florida in November. Goodbye to the Blues. And these are full fat novels with actual writing in them. These aren't just fake books for this presentation. And then this is the one that I did last year. We did this once before. Again, it's like a 300-page novel. And I actually, I outlined it in October. I wrote it in November. And then over the course of the last few months, I had it edited and re-edited and the cover done. And then I published it last month. That was a book in the shortest amount of time I've ever published a book. We did this once before, was the one that I did for Nano. And also, I probably wouldn't have done it except that I did that talk. And then I felt honor bound to prove that it would really happen, that I wasn't just talking. So that book is entirely because of you guys, because I felt the pressure to put my money where my mouth was. Anyway, I've published 3 novels doing Nano, and I've actually written 6, but 3 of them are not quite ready for publication. One of them is waiting for certain people to die. And then after that, I'll be able to publish it. But anyway, what if you don't want to publish a novel? What if you want to write something else? Like You could do a memoir, you could do nonfiction, you could do blog posts. As long as you determine a number of words, it's legitimate. It will help you accomplish what you want to accomplish through NaNo. People do NaNo for all kinds of reasons. My reason is that I want to show something by the end of the year for my presence on Earth during that year. So my first tip for winning at NaNo, oh, wait a minute, I have to show you this. I want to tell you, I'm not an authority. I don't work for NaNo. This is my particular program, and I'm going to tell you what I do. You may do something different. If you're a pantser in particular, you may find this is not to your liking, but my program will get you a book, and that's what we're going for right now. Okay, so in my system, the first thing that you need to do is decide why you're going to do NaNoWriMo. These are some of the typical reasons that we gave to each other in our NaNoWriMo accountability group that we formed. Prove to yourself you can complete a novel or anything. Learn to write faster. Learn about yourself as a writer. I'm telling you, that is an area of rich knowledge that you will mine as you're going through this experience. It's kind of like boot camp, you know, you learn some things about yourself. Or you could do it for the social aspects, or like I said, to salvage 2021. So last year, when we formed our accountability group, we called ourselves the NaNo Challengers, and we told each other our goals. One of us wanted to learn to write fast without actually going back and constantly editing. I just realized I'm not watching for hands waving around. So Michelle, you are though.
I'm watching. I can't see the people waving their hands, but if they raise their hands or put in the chat that they have a question, I'll see that.
Oh, thanks. That would be really helpful. I appreciate that. And then I guess just yell at me if I don't notice you. Okay, so somebody wanted to write fast without constantly editing. That was a bad habit that she wanted to break. Somebody else wanted to learn to plan ahead better before she started a writing project. A third one could only commit to 20,000 words, and that's fine. You don't have to do the 50,000, but whatever you're going to do, be sure and plan, make a goal and tell your friends about it. It helps to have one. But whatever your goal is, as far as like, you may have like a non-numerical goal, like you want to learn to write every day, but you have to set a number because that requires you to sit in the chair every day. Most of us manage to do that every day. Some days during the month of November, you will get called away and you won't be able to do it every single day, but the goal is to write every single day. And consistency is what teaches you something about yourself. You know, according to brain science, if you repeat a habit 21 times, there's more likelihood that you're going to solidify that habit. So if you set your goal as writing 20,000 words and you do it in 2 days, I don't think you really learn anything, except, you know, that you're a stoic and you can certainly produce the words, but consistency is key. You want to write every single day. NaNoWriMo can serve as a springboard. It can jumpstart your writing practice, but only if you are consistent. Okay, so step 1 is have a goal. Step 2 is create a profile on NaNoWriMo.org. It's pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. Just follow the prompts. Now, what I do when I go to NaNoWriMo.org and I already have a profile there. But what you want to do is click the box that says new project, and then you fill it in to the extent that you want to. The most important thing is to put in the number of words that you're going to do. But some of us like to do a little bit more. I actually create a fake book cover because it helps me visualize the project. That is the title that I'm going to do this year, but I'm not going to use that cover. I just needed something. But you know, athletes visualize before they go into a meet. This is for me, like I'm visualizing the actual work, and it somehow I think it helps you get a little closer to the completion of the project. But whether you make a fake cover or not, be sure and fill out all the information in the new project box. Otherwise, there's no place to record your word count every day. All right, so you have you've established a goal. You've gone to NaNoWriMo and you've signed up. The next thing we do, step 3, I have to structure my story before I get started. Now, you may be different. This may not be your choice, especially if you are a pantser. But for me to sit down in front of a computer and write almost 1,700 words every single day, if I don't know what my story is, I just can't do it. I mean, I could write, I am doing nano, I am doing nano, I am doing nano, but I'm not going to end up with a complete book. And you know, that is my goal, is to write a book. Every time I do nano, I want to come out of it with a book. So I need a template of sorts. I need to know, what is the story that I'm going to tell? How's it going to start? How's it going to end? I'm going to show you 2 simple examples of story structure. And by the way, you don't have to write this down. I always do a blog post summary on our website, dvwritersguild.org, after every meeting. It's usually up by about the end of the week following our meeting. I will include a link to these slides so you can just look at it on your computer. So far, what I've said hasn't been slide worthy for you, but you'll see some tips on the upcoming slides that so don't take notes, just enjoy the presentation. Okay, this is the simplest probably structure that you could possibly use. Who's the story about? Obviously, who's your main character? Why this person? What's special about them? What's going to happen? It really helps me, no matter if I'm doing nano or not. Whenever I start a new project, I always think about, what is the elevator pitch? What's the blurb? What's the one line? And then that's like the smallest version of my novel. I always write from that. It helps me know, and it's kind of like the North Star. I establish that this is what my story is about, and I keep writing to that particular premise. How is it going to happen? Well, if you're like me, you outline intensively. But if you're not an outliner, you could just have 2 or 3 scenes in your head. You could have the beginning scene, the midpoint scene, and the ending scene, and then write up to and beyond those scenes. But have something in your head that's visual. It really helps. And then what's the conclusion? I don't know if you can see this. Some of the graphics are hiding my slide, but what is the point of your story? I think it really helps to ask yourself in the first place, why would anybody want to read this? What's my point? Okay, that's an example of a very simple story structure. What I use when I first get started, you've probably seen this before, is the Pixar/Disney story spine. Once upon a time, every day, but after that, blah, blah, blah. You can read it for yourself. And again, it'll be on the slides. That'll be linked on the blog post. But this one really helps me get a simple idea before I get started of what my story is about, who it's about, and what's going to happen. What I do is I'll write this down on an index card, and then I'll go for a walk every morning during nano. You know, it's November, it's cooling off. You can go for a morning walk and not incinerate yourself. And I'll pull out that card and I'll look at it and I'll just walk around thinking and talking. And the neighbors kind of wonder about me, but they know I'm a writer and that's what I do. So there goes Lynn again, talking to herself, walking down the street. So anyway, you've got a goal, you've set things up on Nano, and you've got an idea of your story. This is all beginning preparation that you want to do in October before you get started in the actual marathon itself. The next thing I do is an outline. And even if you're not an outliner, stick with me on this because there are reasons to do it other than the traditional. Because when you do an outline like I do 30 different scenes, one for every day in the month of November. And so it's like 30 days of writing prompts. You sit down, it's time for you to write. You're not feeling that motivated. The muse has deserted you. People are pounding on your door, the phone's ringing, and you've got to puke out 2,000 words. How are you going to do it? Well, here's an example of, the first 4 days of my, I did this a couple of days ago. A couple of years ago. This was a book that I wrote that I haven't published yet. But this is an example of my 30 days of an outline. You can read it for yourself, but you get an idea of what I do. And I do that for the whole 30 days. Now, one of the benefits of this, besides it being 30 days of writing prompts is that you can jump around. Let's say today is the day you're supposed to write scene 2. It's the second day of NaNo, and that's what you're supposed to write. But you don't feel like it. So you go to day 25. What does it say for that? That looks a whole lot more juicy. So you're going to write about that scene. Or you might pick 2 of them and write, you know, whatever you want. If you do a scene outline like this, you don't have to go sequentially if you don't feel like it. Also, if you don't have time to sit down and actually, you know, work on one particular scene, maybe you've only got a half hour. Well, jump around, pad it. You can go from scene number 1 to scene number 2 to scene number 3 and just add a couple of lines of dialogue. You can do 50 words in one chapter, 100 words in another chapter. This is a great way to bulk up your writing. And, you know, it's not linear and sequential, but that doesn't matter because you've already written out the outline. So that really helps me. I will end up doing 50,000 words, no problem. Even if some days I don't feel like writing, I'll just go to one of these scenes and I'll just elaborate, just add a few, like a description or something like that. Okay, I should ask, I feel like I'm shouting into a void. I don't know if any of this is resonating for you guys. I hope it is. I can't ask for your reactions right now, but I hope it is helping. I know it's pretty detailed, but this is, like I said, this is my method. I've done it 6 times and it's helped me write a book each time. Okay.
This is a great time if anyone does have questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Have I put them to sleep?
Yeah, I got one quick one for you, Lynn.
Okay.
My question is, this last book you wrote,
Mm-hmm.
it was 50,000 words in a month, but was it 50,000 words by the time you finished the book, or was it more or less?
Oh, it's definitely more. And my feeling is that you can't really expect to write a perfect novel by the end of NaNoWriMo. I do 50,000 words, and that's like the guts of my story. But then I have to elaborate, I have to edit, and I have to make it into an actual pretty book. So it ends up being more like 75,000 words, but it's easy because when I've got the 50,000 down and I've followed my outline, I've got a pretty darn good book. And then I noticed that there's a scene missing where I didn't explain somebody's motivation, or, you know, I left a storyline alone, I dropped it. So then you can go back during December, January, February, and bulk up your 50,000 word story and turn it into something that's more usable. Does that answer the question, Jim?
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you, Lynn.
Okay. I think there are a whole bunch of writers right now that are pumping out, you know, books every 2 weeks or every month or whatever. And I'm not that kind of person. Mine have to have, I'm more careful with my books. You know, I want them to have quality. I want to polish them and polish them. But there's a huge kind of a pulp fiction industry going right now, and people are making money, and I'm glad for them. My books are more like the traditional book, so it does take me about a year to write a good book. I'm not a fast writer, not according to those standards, but NaNoWriMo really helps, you know, pick up my productivity. Okay, so the next step after I do the outline is, let me just prepare you for this. November is traditionally a month where we do a lot of traveling, we have family, we have, you know, the kids are out of school, the grandkids are coming over, whatever. There's a lot of stuff going on in November. I mean, what kind of sadistic person decided NaNoWriMo should be done in November? They should have done it in a month when there was nothing else happening, you know? But anyway, November it is, the holiday month of November. And even though most of us aren't doing as much anymore because of COVID, we'll go back to the busy activity. So I like to look ahead in the month of October. I like to look ahead and see what's going to happen in November. I mean, like every day I look at my calendar and think, well, what days am I free to write? What days am I not free to write? And then I put that information somewhere. Here's what I do. Yep, That's right. I do a logbook for the month of November. I take a 3-ring notebook and I put 30 pages of loose leaf notebook paper in it. And I, label each one that, November 1st, November 2nd. And then I have these, can you see the labels over here on the side? I make up some labels, a sheet of 30 labels, and I put them up here in the upper right-hand corner of each page, so that at the end of the day, I can say, how many words did I write? How many words have I written so far? And what should my total be so far? Where should I be in this process? This is a good way to keep track of what your progress is. But what's most important to me is I can look ahead and say that on November 16th, it's my sister's birthday, we're probably going to do something. Be sure and write in the morning or write ahead of time on the 15th, bank some words. If I already know that there's some kind of activity going on, I figure out how to write around that, so that when that day arrives, I'm not blindsided by activities and think, oh, well, I guess I can't write today. I already know whether I can write or not. And the other thing is that when I finish up writing for a particular day, I'll write some notes in there as to is there something I want to address the next day, which really helps you get started the next day too. Let's say you're thinking about the fact that these two characters have never had this critical conversation that they're supposed to have. And you just realize that. So you write it into next day's notes, and it's like a story prompt that can get you started on the next day. 1 year before COVID, of course, I traveled a lot. I went to 3 different places in the United States. One of them was the Central Valley for the Thanksgiving, the family Thanksgiving dinner, but we went on the train. So I had to write on the train, and there were some other challenges too, but I wanted to show you what it looks like in the old days, and hopefully in the days to come when we're traveling more. In November, this is what my log page looked like for one particular day. Yep, I was going to be in an airport and on a plane most of the day. So I said, okay, Texas to Atlanta, that's what I was doing. I was coming from Texas and flying into Atlanta for, another family visit. So charge computer, the morning's probably going to be hectic. You might get a couple hundred words in before breakfast, and the bulk of your writing will be at the airport and on the plane. You'll have lots of hours today to write. So do 2 hours in the airport and 2 hours on the plane. That was my big plan. So I'm embarrassed to tell you that I wasn't able to use that information. I only got about 200 words done. But this leads to something else. The importance of banking your words. If you have a day where you can write more, do it. Put in an extra couple hundred words here and 100 words there. It really adds up when you have a day like this, where in spite of the best laid plans, something happens because life gets in the way. And in the beginning of this, I was talking about how doing NaNo is more than just a word count. It's more than just trying to get 50,000 words on paper and then moving on. You learn about yourself. One of the things I've learned about myself from doing NaNo is that I can write anywhere if I have to. And one of the other things I learned is that, I think of myself as a morning person. I only write in the morning. I do better in the morning. And that's true. But if I have to sit down in the evening and write, I can do it, even if I'm not at my own house, even if I'm on a plane or a train, or, with a notebook in my lap, writing in the passenger seat of a car, going up the California freeway, the 5. I can write anywhere. And sometimes you get into it and it actually ends up being good writing. So your preconceived notions can sometimes change as a result of doing NaNo. I think that kind of introspection and self-knowledge is really important to a writer. We have to keep learning about ourselves, right? And also to expand, to break through our limitations, what we think are our limitations. Well, I can't write unless I have, my little inspirational candle and my bell, and it has to be exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, and I have to have had a good breakfast. The heck with that. You can really do more than you think you can. And that's what NaNo can teach you. But anyway, getting back to the logbook, this really helps me. So every day I write in the logbook, or I have written in the logbook to say whether or not it's going to be a good day for writing or not, and I plan accordingly. And then at the end of that writing day, I record my word count up at the top and any relevant notes that will help me get a good jump start for the next day. And I do that every single day. And hopefully at the end, on October 31st, the last page will say something like this. This is actually what I wrote on one year. And it's embarrassing, but not so much that I wouldn't share it with you. Holy crap, you did it. You are Wonder Woman. So that was my accomplishment in that particular year. And after you get done, you'll get a certificate. This is because you have remembered to record your word count every night when you get done writing, or every day when you're finished for good. Go to NaNoWriMo.org and go to your project, the work in progress, and write down, record how many words you did that day. They give you all kinds of cool graphs and charts and everything to show you what kind of progress you're making, whether you're ahead of the curve or behind the curve. But most importantly, as most of us have found out, if it gets to be midnight on your writing day and you haven't entered your word count, you can't go back and edit it. So it's 0. And that's kind of dispiriting, you know? You look at your all the work you did that day and you can't even record it on the computer until the next day. And then it looks like, you did twice as much. Sort of annoying. So be sure and write your word count on the computer, online at NaNoWriMo.org at the end of every writing day. Okay, I hope this is helpful for people. I'm going to go on a little further in a minute, but I wanted to pause and just say, I know that my system is intensive and it's not for everybody, but whatever your system is, I would really recommend that you think about it and prepare in October. Prepare intensively. Think about how many words do you normally write? It leads me to another thought. If you're thinking, well, I can only write 20,000 words in Nano, and so that's what I'm going to sign up for, and you feel like, well, that's not very many. Well, how many months do you write 20,000 words or even 10,000 words? If you're honest with yourself, maybe not that many months. So writing even 10,000 words is a huge accomplishment. I mean, that's something to be proud of. 2,500 words a week, you've done something there. So don't be afraid to set a lower goal, a lower word count as your goal. You'll feel like a winner no matter what. Okay, I told you that we formed a challenger group to support each other throughout the writing process, the marathon, and also during the year. And as I was getting ready for this talk, I asked my friends in the group if they had any tips for you guys, if they had any thoughts from their experience that they thought would be helpful to you. And so, yes, they do. We have some tips, tricks, and hacks from the Challenger event from last year. Okay, this is really important. Dennis isn't here right now, but he said it's really important that I expand on this idea of dictation. Dictation is just a huge boost. What I do, I don't get bogged down by buying a fancy program like Dragon or something like that, and then having to work with it and make it learn how I speak. I don't do that. Most of us have smartphones. Most of us have figured out how to use dictation on our smartphone. So regardless of what kind of a phone you have, you can go to open up Google Docs, click the microphone, and just speak into the microphone. For me, dictation works best when I'm walking. So I'll go around my neighborhood. Again, yeah, I know they're used to seeing me. And I'll be talking into my phone and I'll be describing something. Now, this is really important. When I'm dictating and I'm doing Nano, I'm not trying to write something beautiful. All I'm trying to do is bulk up my word count. And dictation is such a fun and easy way to do it. So what I'll do is I'll dictate a description of a person. Like, what is their background? Why do we care about them? And I'll just talk to myself about that particular character. Or I might want to describe a scene. Let's say they're going into an old abandoned schoolhouse on 200 acres of prairie where they used to go to school. I'll describe the way that the wind is blowing, what the grasses look like, what does the schoolhouse look like? And it's random. You know, I might end up with 200 to 500 words worth of description when I get back to my house. But that's a really good way to bulk up your word count. And you also might get some good ideas for other storylines and, you know, aspects of your story. But then when I get back to my computer in my office, I'll open up Google Docs on my laptop, and then I copy and paste that excerpt from Google Docs into my Microsoft Word document. And of course it's messed up. You know, the dictation's always bad and the punctuation's horrible and all that kind of stuff. And then you find things that you've repeated, and who cares? You clean it up, and you know, that is probably half of your writing experience for the day. You can get a lot of words pumped out by doing dictation that way. Okay, that's my big tip about dictation. I really feel strong about that. But you know, don't worry about being careful with dictation. Don't worry about dictating something beautiful and perfect and polished. Okay, another tip is to take care of yourself. Change your seating often, exercise every few hours, get enough sleep, get out and walk. And also I wrote here, warn the people who live with you that you're doing a writing marathon and are going to be out of commission for hours on end. I don't think that was my tip. I think that was somebody else. But it's good to let your family know, tell them the word, use the word marathon. Most people understand that. And more importantly, then they don't have this like mistaken idea that this is what you're going to do every day for the rest of your writing life, because it's a little hard on family. Okay. Number 3, the importance of setting small periodic goals. As an example of small goals, I will tell you that sometimes I'll write for 500 words and then I get up and I go do a video game or something, you know, to just refresh myself, and then I'll go back. It's like my reward. I do 500 words and then I get to go play this zombie game. Karen Robertson had the goal of, quote unquote, writing her brains out for the first 3 or 4 days to bank extra words in case she fell behind. I really recommend that. I'm going to do that myself this year. I thought she was like amazingly like taking it almost too seriously when she first started out, because she was just killing it, you know. But then think about it. At the beginning of this marathon, you're all excited. You're all fresh. You haven't hit the middle of the month doldrums, which sometimes we do. So while you're all fired up, write as much as you possibly can. If you end up writing like 2,500 words one day, shoot, you've got an extra 500 or 700, 800 words that you can use some other time when you get into a bind, because you don't want to slide too far backwards. It's hard enough doing 1,667 words every day without having to, you know, do an extra 200 just to catch up. So bank your words if you can. You might set the goal to do pomodoros. I don't know if you know what those are, but that's 25 words or 25 minutes of writing and then 5 minutes of a break. 25 minutes of writing and 5 minutes of a break. So you might say to yourself, I'm going to do 5 pomodoros today, rather than, you know, looking specifically at a word count. Set yourself little goals, especially if they're followed by a reward. This can help make your writing seem more fun and more doable. Number 4 is self-explanatory, as is number 5. Because when you enter your word count on NaNoWriMo.org and you get to like 1,000 words or 5,000 words, they give you a little like an icon that's an award, and it feels kind of good. All right. The rest of the tips are, okay, we already said this, but I want to hammer it home. Make sure you enter your daily word count on the dashboard. I mentioned about jumping around, adding 100 words here, 100 words there. That's when you have an outline, you can do that. And it's really helpful to help pad your word count. Prep work, do it before November 1st. That's really, really important. We got together in October before the marathon actually started, our group did, and that helped. Make sure you register on NaNoWriMo.org carefully and correctly, or you won't get a certificate at the end. The certificate is not critical. It's just kind of fun to have. And accountability is really helpful. you know, you could get a couple of writers together and decide that you're going to do this together. If you have any trouble finding a group, I don't know if you can see this, but like look around in here in this group right now and see if there's anybody that you might want to partner with to do this. You can have an accountability group that consists of just you and one other person, or you can go on Facebook and just search for NaNo groups, or go on NaNo and see if there's somebody online that's less in real life, you know, in-person meeting these days. But you can find a group anywhere you look. If you have any trouble, you know, email me, Lynne at AnyShinyThing.com. It's LYNNE at AnyShinyThing.com. And maybe I can help you figure out how to form your own group or find a new
What a
group.
sweetheart.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so in summary, this is my routine. I decide on a goal. Why am I doing NaNo this year? I join a group or a couple of buddies for accountability. I create my profile or my project page. I know my story before I start. I create a scene or chapter outline. I create a logbook to help myself be prepared and know in advance what I need to do. And then I take care of myself because it is a marathon. And afterwards, I celebrate because I feel like a real hero, man. I can't believe I've done this. And everybody in my group felt so good. Even if they didn't actually reach their goal, they learned something about themselves or they accomplished some version of their goal. So it really helps you boost your writing career. And I think if you want to see yourself as a professional writer, this is something you've got to do it at least once. So final thoughts. I don't know if our display is covering that. Let's see. So you're going to forge a powerful writing habit that will stay with you after November 30th. Once you realize you can do this, you'll be able to write a book in a month anytime you want. And imagine seeing a rough draft by the end of November 30th. I want to tell you what my goal is going to be for this NaNoWriMo. I'm going to do something really different. You know, I've done the 6 books, so I've been there, done that. This time, I am going to set my writing goal at 25,000 words, which of course is only half. But the reason I'm doing that is because I am going to do 5 short stories at 5,000 words each, because I'm working on a collection of short stories right now. And I want to get it done. I'm tired of working on it. I want to publish it and get started on this series that I've been you know, planning on for the last 2 years. So anyway, I am going to do that. I'm going to, everything I told you that you should do as far as outlining and everything, I'm going to do one of those for each one of the 5 books. I know it's really scary, and but I'm going to do it. I think maybe doing half as many words, even though it'll be twice as hard, will still be, I think it's doable, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to do this and I'll report back to you. And also you can email me again, Lynne, LYNNE at AnyShinyThing.com, and ask me how I'm doing. Or if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to help you. I think this is really worthwhile. It's not like a fad. It has value, especially in terms of what you will learn about yourself. This will give you muscle as a writer, and I really, really recommend it. So that concludes my talk. I'll be putting these slides on our blog at dvwritersguild.org within, you know, a few days after, as soon as I can. So I'll get back to you on that. Just watch the blog, and hopefully this was valuable for you. Okay, that's it, you guys. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yay.
Thanks. Jim, you want to open it up all the way up? Hello.
Jim, you're muted.
And so are we. Can you unmute everybody, Jim?
Lynn, can you hear me? This
I
is
can,
Karen.
yeah. I can hear you for some reason.
Hey,
Jim,
one of
you're
the things-
muted.
okay,
One
because
of the things,
of my
unmute
age,
yourself if you have a question. Okay, unmute yourself.
Yeah, just unmute
Okay.
yourselves, you guys. Just unmute all of
Okay,
you,
hang on.
unless you have a dog barking or something, you know?
Hang on, I'm trying to remind you, Lynn, because of my age, they should also consider their seating positions. And I know you mentioned to change places, but I had at least 6 different places that I rotated to, because the first time I did Nano, I got sciatica because I sat too long in the same place. And also, you've got to make sure that you're doing some exercises with your hands, because your carpal tunnel will kick in if you have problems with that. So I'm just saying, those are a couple of things you want to be aware of to not overdo. So there you have it.
Yeah, take care of yourself. That's true. Anybody, does anybody in the group that was in our Nano Challengers group have anything to say about the experience?
Yeah, I had never done Nano before, and it was only because of the world slowing down a little bit last year because of the pandemic that I said, okay, always wanted to do it, been wanting to do it for years, and decided to do it. And I'm one of the ones who set the goal at 20,000 words, which I made barely. I fell asleep and woke up at 11:45 on the last day and had to frantically type that last few words, but I made it, and it felt really good. What it did force me to do, I'm also one of the ones that's a pantser. So it did force me, through Lynn's guidance on her last year's talk, to force that outline, even if it's a real bare bones outline, just, you know, a few lines here and there to give you direction, a roadmap, as it were. And it did make a difference. I was able to do my 20,000 words, which now I'm at, I think I'm at almost, I'm over like 56,000 words on that novel now. So it's plugging along, and my goal is to have the first draft done by the 1st of this year. So for me, doing a novel in a year, running a business and having a life is plenty. I don't need to do 50,000 in a month and be happy. So it worked out good, and it was fulfilling, very fulfilling.
Thanks for that, Michelle.
Chuck has his hand up.
What, Karen?
Karen?
Chuck has his hand up.
Yeah, I have my hand up.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I got a comment and a couple questions. One of the things that I really liked was the idea that you would have a very clear vision. By and large, if you look at athletes or dancers or people who want to achieve things, they have a very clear idea of where they want to go, and then they keep that vision in front of them. Okay. One of the dangers is if they get there, they say, where am I? So you want to make sure you keep on refocusing on your vision, I would think. The other thing is, the question I have is, how do you figure into research? A lot of writing requires researching your stuff. Can you just put that into the words that you basically create by creating a research document? Can you basically put that into your novel writing in Rimo?
I would say, and I'll let others, others should weigh in as well, but my feeling is you just don't want to do any research during November, frankly, because if you're doing 50,000 words, you'll be wiped out. If you have extra energy at the end of your writing period, I would say do some more writing, pad your word count, but you can always make stuff up. And like, for example, what's the capacity of a steamboat going up the Mississippi in, whatever year? You could make something up and flag yourself for research after November, after the NaNoWriMo is over with.
Or you can even write that question into your text. I would write myself a note that would say, do further research on this when you get time. Okay, I just wrote 10 words, but at least I know that I'm going to have to come back to that spot. So.
That's a great idea, Karen. You could say, I wonder how many people a steamship could carry and how fast they travel and how much, what do they run on? What do they burn? That would be a great way to pad your word count.
Well, and I'm writing a science fiction, which does take a lot of research. And what I found is I would do exactly what Karen's saying. And then I would put a double question mark at the end of it, so that later on, when I wanted to search out where that was, I just had to do a find for a double question mark, and I'd find the spot in the manuscript that needed some research. And that worked for me.
Great
Very good.
idea.
Yeah.
Lynn, I found the notebook to be really helpful, and I don't know if you can see a note, I guess you can't, but I'm holding my notebook from last year, and it is very satisfying to see the accumulation. It works as an incentive to be writing it down. And so the notebook is really a terrific piece.
It's only 30 pages. You know, I've got a couple of old ones here.
Yeah.
From different projects. Look at this. I don't know if you could see this.
Yeah.
It says became Key Largo Blues. This is my old notebook that turned into Key Largo Blues. I mean, it's only 30 pages. You're just looking ahead. It sounds compulsive and, you know, controlling and all that kind of stuff, but you're just looking ahead to what does the month, what kind of challenges are there going to be in the month? Sandy, thank you for saying that. I often wonder how much of my talk is useful to people, and I want people to take whatever little nugget helps them, you know? So, oh yeah, the DVWG Museum, right, Daniel? Anyway.
I have a couple of just comments.
Yeah.
One, for those of you using Microsoft Word, an updated version, that has dictation on it. If you don't know that, they do have dictation. So you can actually dictate into your machine at home if you wanted to. It's still running, you still run the same problems, you know, commas missing or words that are misspelled that are not what you said, but it's pretty good, and it's equal to what Dragon was before, if not a little bit better. Yeah.
Wow.
I use that.
Yeah, and so it's quite useful. I've used it too. The other thing is just a comment about a writer. I may have mentioned this last year, Frederick Froust, who was later who wrote under Max Brand, Evan Evans, and George Chalice. I don't know how many pseudonyms. Get this one. He averaged 5,000 words a day. Now, did he create any masterpieces? Well, it's the old story. You give enough monkeys, unlimited computers, sooner or later they write Hamlet, right? Well, yeah, he did write two classic Westerns, Destry Rides Again and The Untamed. But you know, 5,000 words, what about the rest of his output? Well, it was good pulp fiction, and that's all I can say about it. But I suspect he didn't do a lot of rewriting either. And I know that Lynn, when you're finished with your book, even though you wrote that 50,000 words in a hurry in a month, you're going to go back and do a lot of editing.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, and which I think sets, you know, writers apart in terms of intent.
Yeah, I want to say more about that, but I think Karen's trying to get in. Are you trying to get in, Karen?
Well, I'm just going to say on that same subject of research is a lot of times you have maybe a character and something's happening, but you just don't have the words yet to express it. You know, you can even write in there, I need more meat here, or I need to describe this person in a more detailed way. And that's fine. You're going to, like Jim says, you're going to edit this thing to death when you get done. But NaNoWriMo doesn't care whether you spell the words right or whether you put in the commas or the quotation marks. I find that I work better if I put in the quotation marks, and I know because it makes me keep track of who's talking. And that's all. That just adds to it. When you get to the end, it's not quite as hard to edit it.
Yeah.
I can't remember who the author was, but they said you can edit a really poor, lousy page of your draft, but you can't edit a blank page.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Bev,
Good point.
Bev, what did you want to say?
That's what I've been doing wrong. You can't edit a blank page.
Who knew?
I
Now
think it
you
was
do.
back in 2018 that I did Nano for the first time, and I got my certificate at the end. The novel I had written, I had it edited, and she gave me 14 pages single spaced of suggestions, and it was
Oh
wonderful.
my gosh.
I learned so much. But right now, that novel is sitting on my shelf, waiting to be redone completely. But right now, I'm toward the end of a historical fiction novel, and I just can't get to it. And so, Lynn, thank you for your presentation. You've got me fired up to get on Nano again, and
Well,
we'll see
good.
if I can finish this baby. And Karen, I want you to know I have used a few of your suggestions, because I too, when I write, I put little notes, I need to research this further, or with this character, go more in depth or whatever. So, and I think I'm going to do that in November, because that will up my word count too. So,
Well, Bev, the one thing that I would question though is, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems to me that if you have to think real hard, or you want to do something artful or beautiful, in other words, if you want to write really well, I don't know that Nano is the right venue for it, because it's like you're shooting words out of a cannon. And so if you're thinking you're going to like wrap up your nicely constructed historical, I don't know that this is the right venue for it, because the pressure would really be on you to do something quality, but also in a short period of time. Unless you said, I'm gonna, well, I don't know. I think
I appreciate what you're saying. And
yeah.
I wish I could remember the person who said this, but give yourself permission to write crap. And
And Lamont.
yes.
Yeah, the SFD, the crappy first draft.
And I am a prize-winning procrastinator. So I need a deadline, and that's what I'm looking at. I won't be going for word count. I will be going for quality, but I just need to get this done. It's so close.
Yeah.
And my writing group is encouraging me, but it's like, I
Bev?
think part of the problem is I don't know where it's going. I know where it needs to get, but I don't know how to get there. So that'll give me a lot of food for thought for October. Yeah, somebody's got a question.
Bev,
Yeah.
you could take those 14 or 16 pages of critique that you have, and you could set that up as your goal, that each week you will do 2 of those. You will address 2 of those. Set up a different kind of goal for yourself that has you editing and using and adding whatever it is you need to, in addition to what the critique has been offered to you.
Thank you, Sandy. I need to clarify, I think, because those 14 pages were from that other novel.
Oh,
This
okay.
one's totally different.
Okay.
And I just learned so much from her critique. And believe me, I apply that. I hear her voice in my head all the time, and I share that with my writing group too. So it's just this procrastination thing that I've got to get over.
Well, one of the great antidotes for my procrastination is having people who are expecting me to produce. Like being in Jim's writing critique group, Jim and Vicky's critique group every Wednesday means I need to bring something.
Yes.
And so, and then doing this presentation means I need to cook up a new thing to prove to you guys every year, that this is real.
Yes.
But what has really happened for me in real life, Bev, is that I went from, my first book took me about 8 years to write, but I was learning the craft, so much of it was learning. And then every book after that it was cut in half. For me to have written this latest book in about 10 months, it's a wonder to me that I did it. And I actually think it's good. So, it really can help you be accountable if you have people who are breathing down your neck and expecting you to,
Yes.
to produce when you say you're going to.
Yeah, I have a problem when I'm writing. My problem is that if I don't edit some while I'm writing, and I go back and really edit the earlier chapters with, I spend hours and hours editing each chapter. If I don't do that, I think I have a piece of crap. And only when I edit and it sounds good and it works after the editing and all, that gives me permission to write more crap.
And that's your system.
That's my system.
That's your style. You are a unique writer in that every single week you've got something. You are the most consistent writer I know. And you also have a good idea of story. I don't know that you need to outline things because maybe it's because of your background teaching English or whatever, but I don't know that Nano is necessary for you. And I know that you're not really that interested in doing it, but you have a technique that works perfectly for you.
Exactly. It does. And it's just one of those things built in, but for me, editing becomes as crucial, more crucial in some ways than even writing the book. I mean, because I really do think, for me, I have to do that to make sure that the piece is any good at all.
Yeah.
That's just a response on my part. I think NaNoWriMo has some tremendous advantages for people who want to try it out. I think it's a great object. I mean, one year I did write a book in a month, and it was really bad. But I do think when I did it gave me a sense of story structure and some other things. I did this. I mean, this goes way back before I published my first book. But I do think for people who are going to do it, I think it has tremendous advantages and offers a lot.
Can I just say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Karen, I would encourage everyone to read Spreen's latest book, which is, we did this once before, and it is a really good read. And for anyone who is dealing with or has dealt with elderly parents, it definitely will give you some good insight. And I think her 10 months that she did it in was awesome. And Jim, she wrote it in 30 days, but it took a long time to get it ready to go. So, but it was good. It's great.
Thank you, Karen. Check Venmo.
Yeah.
And Jim, I want to speak to your method. By the way, it works very well for you. I do the same thing. I always go back and edit what I wrote the day before and move on. During Nano, I did as well. I didn't stop that. It's one of the reasons why I set a 20,000 word goal, because I know that that's how I jumpstart to continue on with the manuscript, is by cleaning up what I did the day before. I don't spend hours doing it, but I go through and I clean up at least.
Yeah, I literally spend hours on a chapter. I mean, I'll spend 7 or 8 hours on 2,000 words rewriting it.
Yeah, and it shows its quality. One of the things I think for me, what NaNoWriMo helps me do is it condenses my story into such a small timeline that I don't have any trouble seeing the story as a whole entity. If it goes too many months, I forget what the characters were doing. I forget some of the storylines. But if I have to, create a whole 50,000 word complete story from beginning to end with high points and characters and everything else, it's easier for me to then, once I have that, then I can go on and polish it and expand it and everything else. But if I am left to my own devices, writing that same 50,000 words will take me a whole year. And by the end of the year, I don't know where I was. I don't know what I was writing about,
Okay,
I forget.
I have a question for you along those lines.
Yeah.
When you wrote your books, like this last one, okay?
Mm-hmm.
In the 50,000 words you wrote, your first 50,000, I know you expanded, it went longer, but did you reach the conclusion of your book in that 50,000 words and then add 25,000 more?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was a crappy conclusion. I had to rewrite. I had to rewrite the ending It was horrible. It was like it didn't have enough punch. So I had to rewrite the ending. And then I went back and I cut off the first couple of chapters because they were, info dumps. And so then, it's like kind of like an accordion, it grows and then it gets smaller and then it grows and it gets smaller again. And I ended up with, I think, 76,000 words.
That's that's a third of a book you added to it. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, but I had the bones. I had 95% of the story, done. Like, for example, one of the things that the editor said was she made the observation that I had not answered a particular question that I had raised. So I went back and I wrote a whole chapter dealing with that unanswered question, that dropped storyline. So, that's 2,000 words right there. And that kind of thing can happen. So that's what happens with me.
Any other questions?
No, but she should burn those notes so that nobody ever finds them.
Why?
You don't want your history exposed like this.
Oh, it's so funny. I have some old novels, and one of these days I'm going to publish like a chapter of it, complete with all the hysterical exclamation points and like the tags, like she said worriedly. My early writing was so horrible. It would be a crack up to publish it.
Well, I'm a big fan of Thomas Wolfe's Look Homeward Angel, but his earlier version of that was called Oh Lost. Well, they reprinted it recently. They finally printed his original version, and he would have sentences where he'd say something like, she said, and then have 3 adverbs afterwards.
Yeah, I
And
used
no
to do
wonder,
that.
no wonder it was cut.
That's how I used to write, Jim. And now I go back and read it and it just cracks me up. It's horrifying because I showed it to, an agent or two back in the day, and they were nice enough to be, polite to me, but then they gave me a fake email address. So anyway.
I think that's happened to all of us.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I have to say, I've really enjoyed the conversation after this, after my presentation. I've really enjoyed the give and take and the contributions everybody's made. That's what we're here for, is this community of writing, people who like to write and talk about writing. So this was really good. Thanks for your participation, everybody.
Well, I'd
And
like
thank
to
you
thank
for a
you,
great
Lynn.
presentation.
Yeah, thanks for a great
Thank you.
presentation. You almost make me want to do it.
Almost,
really.
but not quite.
Not quite,
Also-
but almost.
also, I've
Got me real
enjoyed-
close, but-
I've enjoyed the chat notes too. It's hard to pay attention to them as they're going by, but thanks for all of you who have entered notes in the chat. Really appreciated it.
All right, everyone, and we'll see you next time for the reading of prose, and I will send out Joe's announcement either later today or tomorrow. Okay, and
Wait,
so
wait.
information once again.
I got my hand up.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Chuck. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's all right. I just have to figure out how to get noticed. Just to follow up on the Dorland thing, I posted on the chat. The guy's name is Donald Smith. It's called Table Manners, and his email address is on there. It's basically Donald Smith 1949 at gmail.com. And I don't know how much more you need to know, but what they do is they have authors that come in and present slightly written plays, and then actors portray them, and then they have a discussion about what the actors are thinking while they're trying to build this character. So they do it about once a month. I've done a few. There you go.
All
Does
right, well,
anybody
thank-
know? Does anybody know once the recording is over with whether the chat notes are still available?
Yes, they are, I believe.
Okay.
I think the chat notes are still available.
Okay.
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, everyone. It's been wonderful again, and I will see you, the rest of you, in a month.
Okay.
Some of you.
Hey,
soon.
Jim, happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm feeling very young. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank
See
you.
you later.
Bye.